Hello and welcome to the Society with Fatma Shaheen at PTB World. Considering that Pakistan's Independence Day is just around the corner, today on our show we'll sit back and analyze what are the most notable social developments that we do see happening in the Pakistani society today. In this regard, we'll not only be talking about the most notable developments as we do see them emerging in Pakistan's education sector. Moreover, we'll also be shedding light on, of course, the most notable initiatives that we do see being taken by the Pakistani government in Pakistan's healthcare industry too. In this regard, we'll also be talking about the empowerment of women more particularly now that, of course, we do have Pakistan's first female chief minister, Maryam Nawaz Sahiba. In this regard, we'll also be talking about not one, rather quite a few initiatives that she has taken so as to empower the Pakistani women at large. In this regard, we'll also be shedding light upon, of course, how we generally see AI, impacting Pakistan and, of course, various sectors and various industries in it. In this regard, we'll also be shedding light upon the fact that whereas, of course, we do appreciate the fact that at one end, AI has had that advantage of improving productivity, of improving efficiency. What we cannot ignore is also the fact that it has led to some extremely legitimate concerns of job displacement too. Overall, we'll also be talking about the extremely important role of media, more particularly social media, and the way it has been used so as to advocate for, so as to propagate not one, rather various social issues, but on the contrary, how it has also, at the same time led to issues of course, a growing misinformation, disinformation, and of course, fake news too. Overall, we'll be talking about Pakistan's societal evolution from the time of independence to what it is today. And if we are looking at this, from a more of a solution-oriented, futuristic approach, what are the issues that we do need to seriously work upon as a society and, of course, as a nation too. All of this today, that too with an extremely diverse panel. Let me introduce you to my today's panel. My first panelist for today's show is Muneeb Qadir. He's an analyst. Assalamu alaikum ji and welcome to the show.
My pleasure.
Alongside him, I have Ms. Zara Osman. She's an educationist and she's also a counsellor. Assalamu alaikum ji and welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. My third panelist for today's show is Jaleel Ahmed Awan Saab. He's a legal expert and he's also a tax expert. Assalamu alaikum ji and welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. And via telephone line, we'll be joined by Ms. Bushra Butt. She is a senator of PMLN and she's also the chairperson for Standing Committee on Education and Professional Training. Assalamu alaikum ji and welcome to the show. Now, before we start the discussion on today's topic, let's have a look at this brief report.
Welcome to our discussion on the evolution of our society since independence. Over the years, we have seen significant progress in our education and healthcare sectors, with increased access to quality services, leading to a more informed and healthier population. The government has also taken substantial steps to empower Pakistani women, from providing education and job opportunities to legislative measures that protect their rights. Our tax system, though challenging, is gradually evolving with reforms aimed at promoting fairness and contributing to economic growth. By fostering a more inclusive society, we are making strides toward better integration and acceptance of transgender individuals and minorities. These positive developments reflect our ongoing commitment to building a stronger, more equitable Pakistan for all.
Welcome back from the break. Now, to get the conversation started with you, Muneeb, when we do talk about 14th August, we of course talk about this in the context of celebrating, our independence, so to speak. But do you not feel that at a very basic level, it should also be used as an opportunity so as to instill pride, so as to instill that basic sense of national identity, that too in the Pakistani youth, considering now, of course, that we do see in the past few years, more particularly, so many young Pakistanis migrating abroad?
I think that self-reflection and introspection are very important, and 14th August every year presents us with an opportunity to look back and try to understand where we've come, how far we've come. Have we come far enough, as much was expected, and how far we can go? So it's also one of those days when we can also look into the future. Where are we headed, and are we headed in the right direction?
Exactly.
So I believe that the last few years, and particularly 2022 floods, the memory of that is very recent, have been very challenging. All in terms of economy or political challenges. or otherwise, natural disasters in light of climate change. So how are we going to be tackling all these challenges on so many fronts? It's one of those days that we can, not just the policymakers and lawmakers, but I believe that the common citizen as well, they are stakeholders in the dynamics here.
Extremely important stakeholders. And also, Muneeb, do you not feel as a young person yourself that over a period of time, we've seen youth civic engagement that increase? Now, young people, they are more motivated to participate in social causes. They are more politically aware, as perhaps was the case maybe when we were growing up, when our parents were growing up. So that is a very positive societal shift.
I think that this generation is very lucky, and to an extent even I consider myself a part of this generation, because it was somewhere in my 30s that social media had become very central to political and social conversations, and somebody like me is much more well informed in the sense that it's just a click away, it's just on my tablet device or my phone device, all the information, not only national politics and national dynamics, but also internationally what's going on in the world and global trends. So we have every single opportunity to be aware, to receive information and to spread information, which means we all have a voice in our own ways.
Right. And but also again, then this again comes with a responsibility, about which we'll talk. But before that, Ms. Zara, I'll want you to contribute to this. So when we do talk about instilling that basic sense of pride and of course national identity too in young people or people generally in the Pakistani society, to what extent do you feel can the education system do just that? Because we have seen that in countries like Singapore, curriculum reform has been at the forefront of very successfully revamping, improving overall the education landscape.
Absolutely. I think, Fatma, as Muneeb just said, that we have to instill this positive attitude in our children, in our youth, in school, and also then we have to teach this love for our language, because most of our poetry or whatever literature we have is in our national language. So unfortunately, I think since our society is divided into, I would say, largely two classes, I would talk about them. The elitists are not speaking the language anymore, and until and unless we don't commit ourselves to the language, we cannot hope to instill nationalism, I would say.
Basically, the focus on instilling that love for our national language, Urdu, that needs to be prioritized too. But overall, if we are to overall evaluate the evolution of Pakistan's education system from the time that it did gain independence to what it is now, so where do you see it today? Because to mention a few positives, we do understand the fact that the integration of digital tools in our education system has definitely improved access to it. That we also observe the fact that generally now there is greater focus on children basically learning to think critically. So in terms of skill development, we've also moved leaps and bounds. But what about ensuring that overall the education system that is more inclusive of the girl child, inclusive of minorities, inclusive of differently able persons too?
I think generally the education system has developed, especially in terms of curriculum. I feel some of the most educated people, Pakistanis, who are studying in some of the top universities of the world, they've come back home, they are contributing to the curriculum. Also, digitalization is a move forward. Moreover, our government, the recent the step that they've taken, the initiative, 26 million children out of school, and they've declared an education emergency. These are all steps in the right direction.
True.
So the government's actually, if we keep on criticizing government initiative without actually learning what is happening on the ground, and there are people who are working towards a better education system.
Right.
And I feel that in a classroom 25 years ago, if you had a child who was differently abled, there was no scope for that child. Now, especially in the private sector, we do have assisted learning for such students.
Right.
And parents don't choose only to exit the country if they have a differently abled child. They do
even
have
for
options.
autistic children, you see, we
Absolutely,
do have their inclusion by that yardstick too, and this is something which was unheard of perhaps maybe a decade or two ago.
Exactly.
Armisha, I'll come to you, Ms. Bushra, and I would want you to add to this further. So overall, when we do talk about the overall social evolution of the Pakistani society, one thing which we must of course add to this is women's very important role in national development. In this regard, then of course it's very important to mention this extreme extremely important and famous saying of the founder of the nation, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, which is, and I quote, that no nation can rise to the height of glory unless your women are side by side with you. So overall, as a woman yourself in the Pakistani society, if you were to analyze, how do you overall see women's role in our national development from the time that Pakistan gained independence to what it is now? And why do you feel as a women parliamentarian is it so important for us to, include that female perspective of women in not only our policies but in, of course, generally societal progression too? So how would you view this issue and what would your comments be on this?
You're absolutely right, Fatima, if you highlight Quaid-e-Azam Jinnah's vision that no nation can rise to the height of glory unless your women are side by side with you. Keeping this into consideration, women make 50% of the population, and looking at the economy right now, it's not easy to run a household with one person earning. So it's become the need of the hour. And yes, women need to be empowered in a way where we live in a patriarchal mindset, where when a woman steps out of the house, she has to face a lot of problems and issues. But things are changing. Now, having a first-time female CM is a plus because the kind of policies, the kind of projects that she's working for are women-friendly. They're there to support the whole process when a woman leaves the house till she reaches her workplace. Even when she's at her workplace, a lot of laws have been passed regarding harassment at work policies to create daycares to facilitate. It is the responsibility of the government to facilitate the whole process. If you look at Maryam Bibi, she is coming up with projects like women on wheels, where women transportation is provided, where other than that there's emergency push buttons, then there are apps, helplines for women, and when we were in the government, we created a one-stop shop in Multan Harassment Center, where a woman who faces some kind of mishap or a tragedy or a tragic case, so she doesn't have to run. She's a victim. She doesn't have to run to places to file the case, to get her medical done. It needs to be, the whole process needs to be facilitated and needs to be provided under one roof. And Maryam Bibi is very adamant over the fact that such one-stop shop solutions should be provided in every district. So it's about it's a complete full circle where you need to not just create job opportunities but facilitate the whole process so that the women who step out of the house feel safe, their families feel safe. Because as it is, it's not easy for people to let their daughters out, to let their wives out of the house. So things are changing, they are going in the right direction, and inshallah you'll see a positive change.
Indeed, madam, that's very rightly put by yourself. But in this regard, then of course we cannot ignore the fact that whenever it comes to women's contribution, it's very important to empower them, that too at a very basic stage, so that they can in turn positively contribute to the economy. On which I'll come to you, sir, and I would want you to add to this further. So overall, when we do talk about increasing women participation, increasing women representation, that too in different sectors in the Pakistani society, I do feel that it's very important for us to acknowledge that over a period of time we've seen more and more women enter the legal profession, and then in addition to that we also see a greater women representation both at the Supreme Court level and of course at the High Court level as well. And recently we've also seen Honorable Justice Alia Neelam's appointment to Lahore High Court in this regard as Chief Justice of the Lahore High Court too. So overall, if you were to then analyze the substantive laws and policies, how women-centric would you evaluate those to be?
Yes, there is significant development laws related to women. There is an amendment in laws after the Constitution of Islamic Republic Pakistan, section Article 25 says clearly there is no eradication on the basis of sex. Article 34 and Article 35 also speaks that there is no difference, equality of law, right of family, right of children, and women are equal like men. And Constitution guarantees fundamental rights to the woman.
Right.
Furthermore, there is a lot of change in our after the creation of Pakistan. There is Women Harassment Act where women cannot be harassed in workplace, and remedies available by filing of complaint to the ombudsperson or to a senior. And in case it is established that there is injustice with the working woman, even the superior authority can be removed from the service. There is also a law of inheritance of property, which empowers the woman to file a complaint before the ombudsman for inheritance share in property, instead of going into civil suit, which is long litigation. And even if civil suit is pending, she can file a suit before the ombudsman for this purpose, for if she is entitled to the property.
Right. Also, sir, in addition to that, we do see other pro-women laws being passed. Like overall, if you were to analyze the family laws, they are very pro-women in terms of the rulings that we've had. And then we've also seen laws on acid attacks, honor killings, and so many other women-centric issues being very adequately catered to. But the question that goes back to the ineffective implementation, that is something perhaps that we need to work upon. And this is that one issue which has existed since Pakistan gained independence too. How would you comment on that?
Played a very instrumental role in Pakistan's freedom movement. One of them was actually my great grandmother as well, Begum Salma Tasadduq Hussain. So it's a bit personal, but also of course all the laws which have been mentioned. Yes, there are anti-harassment laws. There are laws which protect women at the workplace. There have been legal amendments. You just mentioned honor killing in 2016, and that was a very crucial legal amendment. But yes, implementation, at that stage, I believe it's very important that there be a training scheme, gender sensitivity training scheme from the judiciary, from the judicial level to the level of those who are actually policing and enforcing the law.
So true.
That is what we need to work on. I believe that now that we're having that conversation, there should be a path forward, and there's a lot of hope, fingers crossed. But then when I say there's a lot of hope, there's a lot that needs to be done in that direction.
Of course, there is hope, but there should be hope, because generally as Pakistanis, we should look at this ideally from a very optimistic viewpoint. But moving on, looking past the laws, when we do talk about the various societal reforms, be it reforms in the educational sector, be it reforms in the healthcare sector, or be it generally reforms so as to empower the Pakistani women at large, how do you see the Pakistani government working to do just that? Because, if we are to analyze, I think one thing that we should analyze is that how are various initiatives by the government actually impacting the life of an ordinary citizen.
Bushra Bhatt Sahiba, she just mentioned many of the schemes which have been introduced, and yes, we've had in the last 1 year Lahore High Court Chief Justice, that is female. We have the first female Chief Minister in Punjab, and that Chief Minister of ours, she has introduced, projects like Women on Wheels, and it's all very progressive. It's all
Women
in the right
safety
direction.
apps too.
Absolutely, safety apps.
And a zero tolerance policy towards harassment, which was much needed.
Yes. So, it's because it's a female perspective that is coming at the forefront. So we need more women in leadership roles.
On which I'll come to you, Zara, and I would want you to add to this further. So overall, when we do talk about Pakistan's education system, what do you feel can be done to overall improve an average Pakistani's access to the same? Because this is a very important contention that even if we improve overall the quality of the education system, access is something which then again becomes a very big impediment for people. And this particularly is perhaps more of a bigger problem for people who do live in the rural and the remote parts of the country. So as an educationist yourself, what would your recommendations be in this regard?
Fatma, you see, there is a huge divide. The same kind of education is not available to Kisan's son that you're offering to the son of a banker. And I don't mean that, provide them with an Americanized classroom. All I'm saying is that provide them with the same opportunity. For example, when we are talking about STEM and STEAM education in some of our leading private schools, we're running after this latest system that we've sort of discovered. We can provide the same facilities to the son of a Kisan also.
Right. But do you not feel that, in the recent past, we have seen the Punjab government, more particularly the Honorable Chief Minister Maryam Nawaz Sahiba, work so as to improve the girl child's access overall to the education system? Yes, these are issues which need to be addressed, but then again, we cannot ignore the work that is already being done in
Absolutely,
this regard.
we cannot ignore it, and she has taken immediate action. And I know for a fact that people who are a part of her team, who are working for education, they are the maestros, really, and they are working very actively. So we cannot discredit what is happening, but yes, we need to provide equal opportunity to all.
Right. And then again, we also cannot ignore the fact that we can have perhaps tele-schools, something that was very rampant in the COVID-19 pandemic. I remember PTB starting that as well. Improving people's access to digital resources in itself.
Absolutely.
That is something which will actually help us fill in that gap. That will actually improve people's access to the education system. So coming towards you, I think we should also talk about this from an economy perspective as well. So overall, when we do talk about Pakistan's evolution, I think in this regard, we must also shed light upon how we've generally seen Pakistan's tax system evolve over a period of time. So as an expert in this area, what do you feel are the most notable developments, and how do you feel have these developments in turn actually impacted the Pakistani society at large?
Taxation is very important for economy of any country. Recently, Pakistan has achieved more than 9 trillion targets and created history. Now the target for 2024-25 is about 12 trillion. So taxes are imposed, especially focuses on non-filer. Efforts have been made to collect maximum revenue from the non-filer as well as from retailers, builder, developers. Taxations has been enhanced on the sector which were not already paying taxes. But at the same time, taxation on the wealthy people is more as compared to the people who are paying less taxes. There is also tax on assets that is 7 tax on deemed rental income. So all the government is trying to make maximum effort to enhance the revenue to enhance the filer.
Right. But sir, a very important question which then arises in this regard, and something that I would want you to address, is the fact that how do you propose can taxes be increased so as to of course help government generate greater revenue, but at the same time done in a manner which doesn't pinch the pocket of the average Pakistani out there? How do you propose can that balance be struck?
Yes, there is a little much impact on the small trader or small businessman, but ultimately higher taxes are imposed for rich people and there is low tax for poor people. The ultimately the taxes will be utilized for the benefit of the people, for the welfare of the society, for constructions of roads, buildings, schools, because taxation in Pakistan as compared to when you compare to the other countries, there is very less tax to GDP ratio in Pakistan, nearly 9 to 10. So government is trying to focusing on taxation, especially automation through digitalization, trying to create revenue for the society.
Right, and in this regard I was also reading this news article which said that the tax to GDP ratio that according to the Prime Minister should target to be at least 15% in that regard, that too within the coming 5 years. But moving on, when we do talk about the overall changes, we do understand the fact that the tax system of Pakistan has been one which very traditionally distinguished between filer and a non-filer, and now we also understand the fact that this new category of late filers has been added. So as a tax expert, how do you feel will addition of this category generally benefit the Pakistani society at large?
These are basically revenue measures. The person who is liable to file return of income will file return of income and pay tax. A person, if his income is not taxable, he will not pay tax. Actually, there is a huge data available with the FPR that the people are traveling, the people are utilizing debit and credit card, the people are utilizing bank statements. So taxes will be imposed in the light of their information, in the light of their income. Taxes cannot be imposed on presumption basis. Once cannot be until it's proved that a person has taxable income, he will file return of income. There is concept of late filer through Finance Act 2024. There is a late filer to encourage those filers who were filing the return in time and paying taxes as per law. So punishments are given to the late filer that they will pay tax double as compared to filer.
Right.
So that they should file return in time and government should generate maximum revenue from them.
So it goes back to giving back to the economy basically. You're giving them that leverage, but at the same time doing it in a manner which actually helps you generate greater revenue too. Right, sir, your point is noted. On which, madam, I'll come to you and I would want you to add to this. I think when we do talk about Pakistan's social evolution, one thing that we must of of course, include in this conversation is the important role of young Pakistanis, to how young people can actually lead towards national development. And in this regard, then it's very important to, quote the fact that we do have a very prominent youth bulge, with about 64% of Pakistani population being under the age of 30 and approximately 29% comprising to be between the ages of 15 to 29 years. Whereas we do understand the fact that, the founder of the nation, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah's vision was to actually convert this youth bulge into a demographic dividend. To what extent do you feel have we practically been able to do just that?
Another big issue that right now we're facing is that our youth is highly demotivated. Pakistan enjoys a huge youth bulge. And if we do not invest, or if any government does not invest in them, they will become a huge liability. And we've recently faced a global pandemic, due to which a lot of students, a lot of youth, a lot of the youngsters are suffering from mental health. They feel hopelessness. They're unable to complete their degrees. If the degrees are completed, probably they don't get certified. And the job opportunities. Such environment creates a lot of opportunity for what Pakistan is facing right now is human trafficking. Now, when it comes to human trafficking, it's about all these mafias attacking these students, the younger ones, to get opportunities abroad, and they scam them and they take them through illegal means. So we need to address those issues as well, and the government of Pakistan is very serious about it. We've highlighted that issue, and we want proper guidance, proper counseling as far as education is concerned, as far as job opportunities is concerned. A huge debate is going on regarding brain drain as well. We need to understand there are mafias that are operating, which entice these naive youngsters to apply abroad, and once they leave their country through illegal means, they end up in the hands of mafias, which use and abuse them. So we've been addressing that issue as well. Youth needs to feel that the disinformation that is spreading. Another bad aspect of social media that is being highlighted is the kind of disinformation, and I would request the media personnel to create awareness according to the job opportunities that the government is providing for the youth.
Right, madam. But in addition to that, when it comes to actually doing away with this issue of growing youth unemployment, so to speak, in the Pakistani society, how particularly do you feel can we do just that? That too, in turn, by perhaps focusing on professional training, by focusing on technical education, of course, working to make young people more marketable in terms of this skill development. Have any notable government initiatives been taken in this regard? If so, could you please detail us on the same?
Another big aspect is that government is very adamant over the fact that since we live in a patriarchal society and there's a financial crunch, therefore parents rather invest in boys than girls. So under PEEF scholarship, Punjab Education Endowment Fund, the government is focusing on giving scholarships to girls. They've signed contracts with DFID as well, and they're trying to promote and support the fact that women also need equal opportunities as far as education is concerned. So that's a good initiative by the government. Other than that, government is adamant over the fact that we need to train our staff, skilled labor, and get them opportunities abroad. Now, when the government foresees the whole process, then it eliminates the factor of human trafficking, of taking advantage of these young girls or boys who want to apply abroad. And I think that it just creates a very safe place for our youth.
True. On which I'll come to you, Muneeb, and I would want you to talk on this, but more so from an AI perspective. So overall, when we do talk about the impact of AI, that too, not only one, rather various industries and various sectors, how would you categorize that to be? Because at one end, we do understand the fact that AI has that advantage of improving efficiency and productivity of various sectors, but at the other end, we can't even ignore the fact it has led to job displacement concerns too, and this is something which has actually been voiced in Hollywood as well. So how how would you propose can we find that right balance between the two?
Yes, I think that these fears have been there for very long. Even years ago, when there was industrial revolution, and it was thought that a lot of things that were being done manually or by manual labor were now being done by machines, or were being done in factories, and you did not need actual labor any longer. But what happened was that people adapted. And that's how I think we ensure our survival, is that we adapt to our circumstances. So I think that anyone who does not possess the kind of skill set that is required in an environment where we have artificial intelligence, and it's part of our reality now, we cannot escape it. What we need to do is to learn those skills so that we are always required, and I think there will always be space for everyone in the job market.
Right.
It's only that can you make yourself relevant with latest technology. But you also asked me about the cons of AI, deepfake technology. That is really scary, and particularly it's the way it has been weaponized against women and women in public life when they have an opinion over something, and that is how you exact revenge on them. And we are seeing that, as I'm speaking, in the political landscape as well.
Right.
That is terrifying. So that is where legislation is most required.
Right. And implementation of the legislation.
Implementation, and I think that the entire world, it's not just Pakistan, they are trying to grapple with, because unfortunately deepfake technology or misuse of AI is always 10 steps ahead of any legislation or policy framework that any government tries to come up with.
So these are the things that we do need to consider in that regard too, and also by virtue of that, when we do talk about the growing usage of social media, because that in itself has of course been largely for positive cause in the Pakistani society, we can't even ignore the cons of that too. It comes with that baggage of inducing misinformation, of inducing disinformation, then of course giving rise to so much fake news. So it all goes back to enforcing the legislative frameworks that we do have in mind effectively. Madam, coming towards you, when we do talk about overall Pakistan's education system, and when we do study how it has evolved over a period of time, do you not feel here that we equally need to focus upon higher education, more particularly higher education exchange programs, because that could perhaps be not only an ideal way so as to encourage greater knowledge transfer, but overall to also improve Pakistan's image and reputation abroad as well?
I think the HEC Pakistan has been working actively, and since 2022 especially, they have facilitated faculty as well as student exchange programs with China, also with Turkey. In that regard, I would like to say that, that is my field of work, and I generally work with Turkish universities. So we have facilitated MOUs between different Pakistani universities and Turkish universities. And there is so much to learn from them. The Turks, I feel, they are such a nationalistic nation, and they are also with this sensibility to excel. They have this passion for excellence, and they work very hard. So these are qualities that our students need to learn once they go there, which is why I encourage students to do that. Obviously, there is this aim to strengthen Pakistan-Turkey friendship as well. And then there is a lot to learn from, especially because the Turkish universities and the government is working in fields such as artificial intelligence, sustainability, submarine technology, business administration, medicine. The kind of research that they are doing is phenomenal.
Right.
So these are things that we can learn from.
Right. Coming towards you, Jaleel Saab, I think here we must also talk about, not one, rather quite a few potential restrictions which might be imposed on non-filers with regards to their travel. So in this regard, how do you feel can restrictions or limitations like these actually impact not only overall the tax system, but also the economy and the society at large?
Government is trying to provide every facility for filing of return to the taxpayer. You can file your declaration, VAT statement sitting in your home, and there is no need to visit the FBR offices. Well, even you are provided user ID and password, and you are not in Pakistan, you are outside Pakistan. You can file your declaration. Similarly, a column Malumat is available on your system which provides you your properties, your traveling, your bank statement. Basically, restrictions are imposed on the persons who are liable to file return of income but who has not filed return of income. This restriction is not applicable to the students. Similarly, this restriction is not applicable to the overseas Pakistani persons having no source of income in Pakistan, having NICOP card, and the person once will file return of income, he will be easily travel abroad. The purpose of the amendment is to maximum collection from the non-filer to tax net generation of revenue.
Right, so your point is noted, on which I'll come to you, Ms. Bushra. I think here we must also talk about the important developments that we do see happening in Pakistan's healthcare system, whereas of course we do appreciate the fact that efforts have been made so as to improve an average Pakistani's access to the healthcare system. In this regard, it's also very important to mention the fact that we now have Pakistan's first air ambulance service being introduced. Overall, if you were to then detail us about the most notable government initiatives in this regard, what would those be?
When it comes to health sector, in Punjab especially, I think Mariam Bibi as a CM has a very progressive approach towards it. She is giving equal attention to health sector, because you see that's the backbone of a country, of a nation. If the nation isn't healthy, then obviously the future isn't healthy. Therefore, she's coming up with out-of-box solutions to the problem. We've heard of the air ambulance that has started. There's Halima Bibi's case, who was the first one to be transported to a hospital through air ambulance. There's delivery of medical supplies, and recently in the past government we've had bad experiences with shortage of medical supplies. So you see the chief minister on ground and the health minister as well. They're all very proactive. They're coming up with out-of-box solutions, and they're providing health care to the women, to the children. And our polio drive was fantastic under Senator Aisha Raza Farooq. She's become the focal person again because she did a fantastic job. In Punjab, we have Uzma Kardar leading. So the women especially are placed in key position as well. Hina Bhatt is managing Women Empowerment Center. Then you have Sara Ahmed, who's doing a fantastic job with the Child Bureau. So realizing this, and being Mariam Bibi being the first female chief minister, she's placing women in very powerful positions, and they are delivering fantastically.
On which I'll come to you, Muneeb, and here we must also talk about, our environmental, or more so to speak, rather climate change commitments as well. So overall, when we do talk about, climate change and environmental challenges, we do understand the fact that yes, Pakistan has promulgated not one other various laws, and then we also see quite a few judgments coming which do uphold our right to life as well. But overall, looking at this from a more futuristic viewpoint, how do you propose then can we work towards better aligning all these laws and policies so as to better achieve our commitments under the SDGs?
I believe we've had landmark judicial pronouncements on matters related to environmental regulation, climate change, and yet, every year we go through that smog phase when schools have to close down, and so there is a lot of contribution still being done to through industrial pollution and too much reliance on fossil fuels. So now we need renewable energy sources, that kind of legislation, not just that kind of legislation, but also that kind of policy making. Reliance on solar panels, and then we also need to be thinking about avoiding the kind of catastrophes that we saw in the form of the 2022 floods. Now, our former climate change minister, Shehriman Sahiba, she had mentioned that Pakistan is one of the lowest global emitters of fossil fuels or climate change. It's the least when it comes to contribution. And it's because of the global north, the developed countries and developed economies, that climate change has become such a huge burden for, underdeveloped or developing economies such as Pakistan. So this is not just a national but also an international matter. And we now need to come to that realization that environmental rights are human rights. That is the kind of jurisprudence I'm seeing coming in from the European Court of Human Rights. That is what we need here. And finally, I think that, environmental justice is also related to many other forms of justice.
Of course, social justice. They have such a deep link at the end of the day, because you see women and marginalized sectors of the society, they are more adversely impacted by environmental challenges.
I think that we need to also ensure that their voices are being heard. Of course. And I'm very proud of the fact that I'm not just women, but I'm also seeing a lot of members of the transgender community now coming forward, having their voices heard. I know members of transgender community who belong to various political parties. They are making the voices heard. They are studying abroad on scholarships. So, we need to be more inclusive. We need need to work on interfaith harmony.
True.
And all these things are interrelated because of that one word which, you know, embodies all these, all this phenomena that I've mentioned, and that is intersectionality. And that is what our approach ought to be.
Right. On which I'll come to you, Ms. Zara, and I want you to add to this further. But overall, you know, if we are to wrap up today's conversation, what do you feel are, you know, the things that Pakistan's education system can then learn from not one, rather various countries, be it Singapore, be it Japan, be it even Canada for that matter, which really focuses on including people, that too of course marginalized sectors of their society in the education system. What are the things that we can learn so as to not only improve but also the quality of the education system in the country, but also do it in a manner which is then very relevant to our local, you know, context as well, because we do face our own, you know, Pakistani unique challenges in this regard too.
If we look at successful countries like Finland, or if we look at Norway, the kind of work that they are doing is phenomenal. But you know, we have to look at the early years first.
True.
And they are fostering critical thinking skills in their children. They are teaching them life skills. And in Pakistan, unfortunately, we are still resorting to rote learning. And if you see a student coming in from the public sector, you know, even if you are working with somebody, until and unless you don't give them a set of instructions, they are not, they cannot perform.
True.
So you have to let the students ask questions. We tell the child, stop asking questions.
Right. You need to encourage critical thinking.
Exactly, that is the worst thing to do to any child. Secondly, I feel what is important is to build the character of this nation. And unfortunately, our youth has been pushed into this abyss of disappointment and disillusionment. And this has happened, I think, in the last few years especially. We need to build this character, and we need to show them that there is hope. There's this person, we've shelved him, and every 9th of November, we bring him out and celebrate him as a poet, Iqbal. He was not only a poet, he was a thinker, and he gave hope to a nation of disappointed youth.
Right.
You know what a beautiful prayer it is, कि हर जगह मेरे चमकने से उजाला हो जाए. You know, it gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. Because that is the ultimate prayer. And then, you know, fostering empathy in our children.
Compassion too.
Compassion
Kindness.
towards animals, towards plants, towards other human beings. And I think what greater example than the life of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So you don't have to be Muslim to learn about him. And
You
his
have to be
Sahabas.
human,
You
right.
have to be human, and he's for humanity.
Right.
Truly, this is the need of the hour. And I would also like to add that, you know, as youngsters, especially because I deal with a lot of young students, we look at the West as the ultimate of the, and we feel they are so developed. But at the core, Western society is hollow. They do not have a family system.
I think what you mean to say in essence is that the education system should be such that it should just not encourage academic learning, but also inculcate those values, those virtues of compassion, of kindness, so many other things that you actually mentioned. And then this again becomes a two-way process. It should just not be restricted to schools and teachers like yourself.
Absolutely.
It also, you know, transcends to the parents and what people are learning outside schools to even from media, something that we were earlier discussing as well.
And even whatever problems you're facing in the media, on social media, you know, this value of tolerance, empathy, and if somebody has done something, let it go.
Right.
You don't have to comment and make a whole story out of it.
You don't need to start shaming people or trolling people or cyberbullying people.
Absolutely.
So it goes back to our societal attitudes.
It does,
too. Right, madam, your point is noted. Coming towards you, Jaleel Saab, and to wrap up today's conversation. So overall, you know, we have spoken about not one, the various very important laws and of course social developments that we do see taking place in the Pakistani society. But as a legal expert, more particularly as a tax expert, if you are to wrap up today's conversation, what are the areas you feel that we still need to focus upon from a legislative perspective? Yes, we do appreciate the fact that Pakistan has laws. In fact, you know, some even asserted to be a very over-legislated state. But at the end of the day, if we are to bring new laws so as to cater to issues which perhaps might not be catered to by the legal system, what would those areas be?
Yes, there should be some amendments are necessary in the laws. There should be rights for minorities. There should be rights for further women and the court should be forced to to decide the cases in a short period of time.
We do have laws on minorities and women, of course, but we do need to focus on the implementation. But when it comes to overall evaluating our tax laws, do you feel that there is any room for tax reform per se?
Yes, I think the government already working on tax reform. For this purpose, the presently finance minister has already has ordered to digitalize automation system. Already government is working on automation, and in this regard penalties are imposed, and it is also mentioned that if a person pays the principal amount of tax, there has been no penalty. If tax are to be evaded, there is no penalty. Further incentives are given by the Prime Minister of Pakistan recently, and big taxpayer is awarded reward, blue passport. The government is encouraging the big taxpayers and only focusing on non-filer and on the person who are not paying taxes regularly, the person leaking the revenue just for creation of demand and collection of undisputed revenue.
And I think, sir, here it's very important looking at this from an objective viewpoint that we need to educate people about all these laws and policies too, because you know, more often than not we often see that people are misguided or they do not understand, you know, what are facts and what are myths. Right, sir, your point is noted. On which I'll come to you, madam, and before we conclude today's show, I think in this regard we must talk about this extremely important initiative which has been announced by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, which is of course giving out free visas for business and tourists from 126 countries, which again is a very important milestone. How do you feel will initiatives like these not only help us improve the overall, of course, international image of our country, but also in turn help us better live up to the ideals which the founder of the nation did set down for us, that too with regards to being a progressive nation?
In 2013, when the CPEC was full throttle, Prime Minister, Chief Minister then was adamant over the fact that he wanted to promote business-to-business transactions. And now that the Prime Minister has announced free visas for business and tourists from 126 countries is another example that how he wants to support the economy. You see, when you create opportunities for businessmen to have businesses, it gives a boost to industries, that creates opportunities for jobs. So right now Pakistan is in a state of emergency. So what we need is parallel solutions to the problem. So there's no one solution that can help recover the economy. So I think the government realizes this, and the Prime Minister has always promoted and supported individuals so that they feel that they're part of the project, they're part of the economy. And if you engage them in such activities, that will just come back and the economy will start rolling again. So I have full faith in that. We just need the right direction, the right opportunities. We need to guide our youth, and we need to give them opportunities so that they can address the situation at hand. And I'm hopeful that inshallah with all these little initiatives taken, empowering the women, improving the health sector, creating job opportunities, and creating legal means of doing business. I emphasize on the fact legal means, because Fatima, we're facing a lot of human trafficking, a lot of scams. Our citizens are being scammed and they're being misused, and they leave the country through illegal means. So when the government is giving these opportunities, so they will see through that the people are reaching their destination through legal means. So I have full faith, inshallah, we will see a brighter future, and Pakistan will come out of this dark phase.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, madam. On which note I would like to conclude today's show. Thank you so much, Muneeb. Thank you so much, Ms. Zahra. Thank you so much, Jaleel Saab. And thank you so much, Ms. Bushra, for your precious time today. Well, to conclude today's show, we generally spoke about Pakistan's societal evolution post-independence and how do we see it evolving in terms of not only educational development, but also, of course, the development that we do observe in the healthcare sector, in, of course, empowering Pakistani women and different parts of the Pakistani society too in this regard. Whereas, of course, we do understand and appreciate the fact that, you know, not one, rather quite a few notable government initiatives have been taken in this regard. To name a few would be, you know, of course, imposing an educational emergency in this regard, to also have Pakistan's first air ambulance introduced in this regard, to also have not one, rather various women empowerment initiatives, women safety apps more particularly. What is very important for us is as a society to conducively work towards greater social cohesion. In this regard, definitely media has an extremely pivotal and important role to play. Media no doubt connects all of us. It actually makes access to information easier, but at the end of the day we need to learn to use media more intelligently, more constructively, and definitely more positively. Thank you for watching The Society. Until next time, take care and Allah Hafiz.